For a while, I've been working on a concept for a series called Shuttered about a strange plague that causes people to develop surreal mutations. As I was exploring this concept, I've had all these ideas for characters and storylines scattered around. I couldn't figure out how to make sense of it all and how it should be structured. During that time, a friend suggested that I should make short comic strips that I could produce quickly and share on social media. I thought it was an interesting idea worth trying out. I tried writing the first episode as a comic strip instead of a web series episode, trying to limit myself to only 10 cells. Since now it was in a comic strip format, I wasn't afraid anymore of adding voiceover. In fact, it now felt necessary because of how condensed the plot had to be. The voiceover also eased off some of the open-endedness and anchored the viewer to the thoughts and experiences of the hero. But most importantly, formatting the episode as a comic strip gave it a sense of structure and rhythm that up until that point was kinda missing. I used similar formatting for the rest of the episode ideas and it simply made everything work better. Eventually, I ditched the idea of doing it as a comic strip. I went back into making it as an animated series, but kept the structure and many parts of the voiceover that felt important. Then it was time to try and visualize the entire episode. Previs basically is a sketched out version of the episode, accompanied by demo voice acting and some basic music and sound effects. The goal with the previs is to get a sense of watching the actual episode played out with the minimal level of effort in producing it. During that time, I was playing around with Blender, getting more comfortable with the software, and thought it would be interesting to utilize it for making the previs. It worked out really well since it allowed me to experiment with camera angles, camera movement, and lighting in a way that simply wasn't possible with just 2D drawings. When making the previs, I combined different techniques, sometimes being more reliant on drawing and other times focusing more on 3D. The goal of this stage was to work fast while making sure the visual storytelling was coherent. It took me around 3 weeks to finish the entire previs, editing everything together in Premiere Pro, recording my own demo voice acting, adding music and sound effects. I had a lot of ideas on how I would stylize the final animation, taking inspiration from many different sources, but after a lot of trial and error, and as I was becoming a bit more comfortable with the 3D workflow, I wanted to somehow combine 3D in the actual animation, so I decided to settle on a 3D environment 2D character combination. During these tests, I also managed to figure out a compositing scheme that would give everything a bit of a grainy look, while also leaning a bit on that PS1 era pre-rendered environment aesthetic. That compositing scheme is mainly there to help blend the 2D characters with the 3D environments, while also helping to hide the places where my 3D lack of experience was maybe showing. One of the main reasons for choosing 3D for the environments and backgrounds was for the sake of not having to redraw the backgrounds over and over again. Since most of the episode takes place in a single location, I thought that putting a lot of effort into modeling the environments in 3D would eventually save me time later in avoiding to redraw the backgrounds over and over again. However, creating these environments in 3D took longer than I expected, so I'm not sure it actually saved any time, but I think it was worth it since I liked the 3D background look and feel much better. While working on the environments, I started with basic blocking first, using one of the compositions from the previs as a starting point. I always kept a camera view visible to make sure I am modeling for the shot and not refining stuff that would end up out of frame. To figure out the basic composition, the blocking was done with simple shapes and basic monochrome colors and simple lighting. Then I would go deeper into the details and texturing. For the textures, in some cases I used procedural textures, especially in the indoor scenes. In others I used free resources online like Polyhaven. But for a lot of the textures I simply took them straight from my environment. One of the best things about Berlin's aesthetic are the textures. Whenever I went outside, I just took pictures of pavements, walls, doors, windows, gates, and just thinking I would find a way to incorporate them into my virtual environments. After painstakingly modeling all the environments, including modeling several city blocks for a single drone shot, I was ready to move on to the next stage. I picked 10 frames from the previs and illustrated and composited these frames to a level where they would look like the static frame of the end result. Once I got to a place where I have several style frames with a clearly defined and consistent style, I was ready to start the actual stage of animation. So this is where I am right now. I just finished these 10 style frames. Some of them I shared online, some of them I felt I shouldn't because it's sort of a spoiler, and I'm about to start working on the animation, which is going to take a while, and there's still a lot of other stuff, especially sound coming up, sound design, voice acting, music compositing. I will keep doing these updates every once in a while. I don't know how consistently I will be able to make them, but I'll try to keep it as consistent as possible. And yeah, stay tuned if you're interested in the project, if you seem to like it, if it sounds intriguing for you. And of course, follow and subscribe and all that stuff. Thank you.